is up, people? Just getting all this started for the next chapter, chapter 6. If you will allow me. Okay, here we go. All right, we're doing chapter 6, principle 3, directness, go straight ahead. Sort of like what I'm doing here now. This one. We'll just get application of knowledge and skill. Application of knowledge and skill is more feasible when the initial method of learning Alright, that concludes the end of chapter 6, so let me go ahead and add some stuff here. Where is it?
transfer from doing Skype tutoring to feature. Situations where you make decision skills, there's no way to actually. However, language has the advantage of requiring much larger amounts of practice than typical, as well as exposing you to a fuller range of situations in which the skill applies. Since his end goal was to be knowledge about the subject, a project to produce an original paper applied directly than simply trying to read a lot of books without anything. Tactic 2. Immersive learning. Immersion is the process of surrounding yourself with a target environment in which the skill is practiced. This is the advantage of requiring much larger amounts of practice than typical, as well as exposing you to a fuller range of situations in which the skill. Learning a language is the canonical example where immersion works. By immersing yourself in an environment where language is spoken, not only do you guarantee that you'll end up practicing the language a lot more than you would otherwise, since you have no choice, but you also face a diversity of situations for learning. However, language learning is
All right, so again, this is chapter 6, principle 3, directness, go straight ahead. So in this, it's as the title indicates. So let me start off with this here. His example approach is to show that the learning activities are always done in connection to the context in which the skills learned will eventually be used. So simply put, that means the second line here, which is practice the thing that you want to get good at. And you may not be able to dive in so directly at times to a particular matter. However, when you can, do so to gradually progress in your performance. And an example of that I would give is, say you want to speak a language. So there's different ways that you can go about trying to learn how to speak a different language, but what Young would argue, and there's structure to this, so it's not necessarily always going straight deep into this, but what he would argue is, put yourself in a position where you can start attempting to speak the language instead of just being a bookworm and reading flashcards. Studies over decades show that general transfer of knowledge from one area to another doesn't exist, and general discipline as a muscle is not a valid concept. Though one research argues transfer is paradoxical. So one thing that he talks about is the transfer of knowledge, and Young puts it as the current way that most people are learning, formal learning, is not doing justice in terms of the transfer of that knowledge and skill to real life situations or real life context. So as you can see, he gives an example about an architect student who just recently graduated during, I I believe it was 2007, when there was a huge crash in the market and he couldn't find a job, although he was just freshly graduated from a 4-year university. And most of the places that did want an architect got people who were experienced because they had that experience behind them. It's like a proof of knowledge in the real world context. But this guy who just came out from the university, he didn't have much of that. He had more theoretical types of things, more designs, but he didn't have actual concrete experiences that would prove to an employer that, you know, this guy actually knows what he's talking about and he can put those words into work. So transfer is more difficult to achieve with limited knowledge. The development of more knowledge and skill in one area makes the application of said knowledge and skill more likely outside the narrow context from which they were learned. So, if you're trying to transfer knowledge from one discipline to another, and you don't have much information or knowledge on either discipline, it's going to be difficult for you to try to transfer because you don't have a lot to go off of. That being said, if you have great knowledge of that particular area, then you know the more fundamental aspects of that area, making it even easier to apply outside of that context. So, and this next portion right here is what he talks about. Most formal learning is woeful learning, or woefully indirect, excuse me. I don't know what I'm saying here. Most formal learning is woefully indirect. So, yeah, it's basically saying you're a bookworm. You're just not really participating in what it is that you're learning. It's more of just trying to retain knowledge rather than the actual application of it. So application of knowledge and skill is more feasible when the initial method of learning is similar to the context in which you'd utilize the knowledge and skill. So that is like, okay, you want to learn how to become a programmer, and so at what point do you become a programmer? You can study many years the actual coding languages, but it isn't until you actually start to practice coding that you become a programmer. So essentially, if you want to be good at a particular thing, try to do that particular thing instead of just, again, intaking knowledge and not doing anything with it. Learning directly is difficult, but this can be an advantage if you persist. So, yeah, of course, if you're getting deep into a subject, it's most likely going to get more difficult for you, as it would for many other people. But if you persist, you might just get further ahead because of doing so, whereas you might have someone else on the side who didn't persist because it was just too frustrating for them and they quit then. So there's an advantage to persistence in in a time of difficulty. So here are 4 tactics that Young talks about that essentially lets you be direct in what it is that you're attempting to learn. So tactic 1, project-based learning. Apply your knowledge and/or skill into a project that will yield the fruits of your labor. All right, so there again, like you want to be a programmer. All right, well, make a program. You can make a very simple video game, and that way, you obviously, if you want to make a game, you're gonna have to know how to program. So you're gonna need to know the language, the programming language, and outside of just knowing the programming language, you're gonna have to type it in and make sure it works. And then voila, if it does, at the end of your project, you have a game to show the fruits of your labor. Tactic 2, immersive learning. Dive into an environment/position where you are surrounded by that which you want to learn and more. So let's say you want to learn a language, and let's say it's Spanish. It might be in your interest to, maybe go to a Spanish church meeting where you're going to be immersed in that language. The people around you will be speaking that language, and though you may not know much of it, and that's why it says right here, surrounded by that which you want to learn and more. So it's not necessarily surrounding yourself with something that you are completely familiar with or comfortable with. It's something that's a little bit more than that, but not too out of reach, and that will get you started somewhere. And if you're there, you're gonna have to communicate, and if you don't communicate, at the very least, you put yourself in a situation where you kind of get some more information on how it is spoken, the language, or how people of that language tend to talk. Facial expressions might come into play. You get information, and it's all through the immersion. And following that, we have tactic 3, the flight simulator method. Simulate as closely as possible what it is that you are trying to learn if directness isn't possible. So he would say, if you're going to become a flight pilot, you can't just practice by getting into a plane with no experience and attempting to fly it. That's not going to happen. So what you can do is you can perhaps get a flight simulator that will simulate as closely as possible what it is you are trying to learn without actually engaging in that directly. Same with doctors. I know for me, in my biology class, we had a little pig. I don't know what the term for them are, but it was like a pig fetus, and we dissected it. So I'm pretty sure if you're gonna be a doctor, you're gonna do dissections of animals before you dissect a human. So yeah, that's it right there. That's a simulator as well. And I know there's more ways now. Yeah, I think there's at UCLA some weird, like, huge tablet of a table where you can simulate surgeries or dissections of humans. I don't know. Anyways, Tactic 4, the overkill approach. Put yourself in environments where the demands will be extremely high, so you're unlikely to miss any important lessons or feedback. So, as you can tell by this tactic, this is the overkill approach, and this is where it gets real. So, let's say you're spontaneous, as most people are, and you decide to take a trip to Tokyo without knowing Japanese, but you want to learn Japanese, and so you take this trip, and you just it's essentially tactic 2 where you immerse yourself, but it's more than that. Like, say you go to Tokyo and you're gonna go speak in front of people in Japanese. It's like it's an overkill thing. It's something that you're probably not too familiar with, but let's say you have 4 days to gather your speech and know what you're gonna say and how to pronounce the words and whatnot. That would be the overkill approach. Just going full at it without really having that much experience, but also, you know, not being so half-assed in that, preparing to some extent. And that does conclude directness. Go straight ahead, principle 3 of chapter 6. I believe it was chapter 6. And we will be back at this again sometime soon. Hey, I gotta say, I practiced this last chapter here, where right here it is, focus, sharpen your knife. So procrastination, ooh, I could have so done that today, but I did use this 5-minute rule. Just again, this is I can't wait to come back into all of this and utilize it to my advantage. Anyways, again, until next time, I'm out.